We are ANN, and this is Planet Talk.
Hello and welcome to Planet Talk. It's April 22nd, 2021, and I'm Alex Stein. Today, there's a stellium forming between the Sun, Mercury, Venus, and Uranus, and it's all squaring Saturn, of course, because we're in the longer ongoing Saturn-Uranus square. Now, the Saturn-Uranus square, like we've talked about before, it's all about this tension between preservation, control, limitation, and authority, and that's Saturn. And then on the Uranus side, freedom, radical change, liberation, breaking the chains. So Saturn wants to put chains on things. It wants to hold on, and Uranus wants a jailbreak. And of course, coming at this time, in the latter stages of the pandemic, we can really feel this kind of like a lot of people are reaching a breaking point, and that's one of the expressions of Saturn Uranus, the breaking point. Something that can't bend, so it breaks, and this can happen on the level of society. It can happen on a material level. It can happen on a psychological level. The sudden break, like he just snapped and opened fire on a room full of people. Think about all the mass shootings that we've been having right now. That the guy just snapped is a real Saturn Uranus type of expression. Now, bringing the Sun, Mercury, and Venus into it, we're bringing personal planets into play now, and that means that this dynamic is going to be even more present, more felt in our awareness at this time. Now, the Sun is all about what I want and what I do, and about my will and just sense of identity. Mercury, what we perceive, what we talk about. Venus, pleasure and relationship. So, we're all sick of lockdowns and not being able to get together with friends one-on-one or just meet new people outside in the world. That it's starting to become a real drag for most people. And a lot of people at this point have just said, forget about it. Like, I'm just going about life as normal. And that's the Uranus kind of just, the mad dash for freedom. Now, that's, that's good, or it's problematic to varying degrees. I think one of the things that's really coming up now is the, you know, who's vaccinated versus who's not. Now, this is one of Saturn's things, especially with the Saturn-Pluto conjunction that we're coming out of, the splitting of people into different camps. We have the vaccinated and the unvaccinated, and vaccinated people, like me, like I recently got my first vaccine, and it makes me feel like, okay, I've significantly reduced my chances of infection. I feel more free to start hanging out with people again, seeing people in person. And after my second dose, I'll feel even more free to do that. Other people who don't believe in the vaccine, or for whatever reason, whether it's health issues or whatever, can't get it. They too have reached the same breaking point, and maybe already long ago, and have been seeing people. Now, there are new strains of the virus emerging that are more contagious, and the whole issue of vaccinated versus unvaccinated is going to become a very hot topic. It already is, but it's going to heat up even more, because a lot of vaccinated people, on the one hand, feel like it's irresponsible for people not to get vaccinated, and then people who refuse to get vaccinated feel that it's an affront to their freedom for anybody to tell them to be vaccinated. And well, I'm not going to weigh in on that, but one writer in the Atlantic, Alexis Madrigal, said that from now on, the face of the pandemic is going to change a bit. Whereas we used to call the surges waves that would affect everybody. It's like this wave would come and just it would sweep across the nation, sweep across the world, and there would be a great rise in infections. Now it's going to be more like a tornado, she says, which is, you know, uh, not going to affect everybody. Large swaths of people will be unaffected by future surges, but small clusters of people will be decimated by it, as a tornado does. So we have yet to see how that's actually going to play out, but thought that was an interesting Saturn Uranus image. You know, you can choose freedom at all costs, but it doesn't come without consequences. Saturn. So no matter what we're doing at this time when Venus is together with Uranus and Mercury and the Sun, and we're really like it's time, like I'm free to hang out and have a good time. We still gotta maintain some responsibility, otherwise it will bite us in the ass, and that is, I mean, Saturn is right there to say so. That's how it works. So yeah, now today the moon is trine the stellium, so it's even more present. Like the urge to kind of get out and be free is strong. And moon is also opposite Jupiter, which it's just this warm, kind of expansive, uh, welcoming mood. It's a good time to go out and you know smile and have a big meal and go out into nature and meet new people, whatever. So you're going to do it responsibly, because Saturn is still sitting there waiting to hit you with his whip if you step out of line. So now I want to move on, and talk about uh, the the Chauvin conviction, and what the milestone that I think it is, and look at the relationship between Chauvin's chart and the United States chart, and George Floyd's chart and the United States chart. So I talked about the relationship between Chauvin and Floyd last week, and looked at their synastry and their composite and their birth charts a bit. Um, and today I want to look at how they interact with the US chart. So I think it's impossible to understate the magnitude of what just happened, that Chauvin was actually convicted. Um, it is a real milestone, and as Biden called it, a huge step forward on the path to justice. Um, and as people are rightfully doing, they're saying, "Hey, well, this is just this is just one thing, and we still got a lot of work to do, and all that," which is true. Um, it I don't deny that at all, but I think that the symbolism of things is important, and while it doesn't mean that we've achieved the great goal, it's like when Obama was elected and people were going, "Oh, we live in a post-racial society now," and it's like, well, I think the last you know 13 years have proved otherwise. Um, this is a similar kind of a thing where it is still it's a major milestone, and um, the way that I see it, it's almost like Sisyphus has been rolling that boulder up the hill eternally, and with this, the boulder actually tipped over the top of the hill a little bit. And yeah, it's going to take time to build momentum, but build momentum it will. So I think that Chauvin and Floyd, as I talked about last time, showing their charts a kind of microcosmic reflection of the macrocosm. The U.S. is at its Pluto return. uh, meaning that the karma is right. Basically, our big shadow, the biggest skeleton in the closet, slavery and its legacy for the U.S. is, that closet's been blown open, and it's time to clear, all the bodies out of there, and it's a lot of skeletons in that closet, and the the you know Floyd's murder uh, is a really it's a really powerful kind of point of contact between the larger story that's unfolding and an individual human life, or two individual human lives. We really see the actors in this cosmic play that is unfolding, and it is a cosmic play, and that's where the Mars Neptune square that I discussed last time. The divine play is kind of represented by Neptune. Mars brings in the theme of violence, and in their composite, and I believe in their synastry as well. There are Mars Neptune aspects that show that they have this. One way of reading it is to show that they have this role to play in the divine play. Now, um, so let me just talk for a second about Chauvin and his conviction. Um, the biggest standouts for me here are that he's got Pluto exactly opposite his Saturn, and then Mars conjunct his Mars, so he's at a Mars return. Now the Pluto acting on Saturn, uh, deep evolutionary, titanic, compelling forces of Pluto. The kind of jaws of Hades, basically opening up, and all of this power coming out onto Saturn. You know, uh, Consequences. He's having to face the consequences for what he did. And Pluto's also connected with the masses, with mass movements, and it's, in a way, he he's the fall guy. Chauvin is rightfully, right. I don't think that he's an innocent victim by any standard. He's rightfully taking the fall for what he did. Um, in a way, sacrificed to the this collective push for change. It needed to happen. Um, Pluto was also, you know, opposing his Saturn when he committed the act, when he murdered George Floyd. And another way of seeing it is Saturn is our uh, urge to control and exert authority. And when Pluto, you know, when Pluto empowers that, it takes on this kind of inhuman, kind of nonstop, like Rick Tarnas calls it, Terminator kind of a quality. And so, seeing his dead eyes in that video as he's kneeling on Floyd's neck. Talked about this last time too. The fact with his Sun Pluto opposition, uh, which you can read in a negative sense as "I am power," that was really coming through. And so, with the Mars transits can be, it's hard, like a clash of energy, the confrontation. Um, we can also think about it as, his the fruits of his violence coming home to roost. Let's take a look at Chauvin's chart. Actually, let's take a look at the U.S. chart first. Okay, so notable element of the United States chart is the Sun, Jupiter, Venus conjunction. So Sun, Jupiter, Venus. this is a likable aspect. It's a big, sunny, happy, warm type of a vibe, and it's what I think gives the United States its star quality, uh, and makes the whole world look at what the United States does and emulate the United States. And um, there's some truth to the idea of American exceptionalism. Uh, America, gave the world Hollywood, it gave the world rock and roll, it gave the world hip hop. It's like everybody in the world is affected by these things. It gave the world, commercialism and just, you know, you can go into the middle of the Amazon and find somebody wearing a Mickey Mouse T-shirt. It's like, now I'm not saying that's a good thing. I'm just saying it's there's that kind of star quality, and there is something exceptional to America. It's also the that quality, particularly the Sun Jupiter, of the kind of puer aeternus, the eternal child, or the teenagers of the world. America, yeah, it's a young country, but it feels like no matter how old America gets, we're always going to be teenagers on some level. That it's just kind of baked into the American ethos. Um, Now, the fly in the ointment for all of this is the square from Saturn. So Saturn is in very close square to the Sun, but it's also squaring uh, Jupiter and a little out of orb for Venus, but I'd say Venus is getting pulled in there too. Um, Now, how does this show up? One of the ways is in America's kind of self-conscious way of thinking about how special we are. So that's that American exceptionalism thing. It's like, yes, in a way, America is exceptional. Hollywood, rock and roll, just all the stuff we've given the world, hamburgers, whatever. Um, but that need that we have to go, I'm special, I'm special. Aren't I special? That there's that insecurity from Saturn. It's like that way that we need to keep looking in the mirror and telling ourselves how special we are, and then going around and trying to do things to make the rest of the world love us. Um, Sun Jupiter can be really egotistical, in addition to being really warm and great and sunny and like bringing up the vibes of a place. Um, Saturn will draw out the and kind of underline the problematic egotistical expressions of something, and make it painfully obvious. I think it also shows up in our need to define. Saturn likes rigid, clear definitions. Our need to define what it means to be American. Conservatives have their ideas of what it means to be American, and liberals have their ideas of what it means to be American. Let's take a look at Floyd's chart in relation. Okay, so his Saturn is pretty much right on the United States Jupiter, Venus, and also, uh, you know, within conjunction of his Sun. In his life and his death, um, highlights that kind of sour note in the personality of America. That it's not all fun and games. It's not all rock and roll and hamburgers. It's not all Sun, Venus, Jupiter. It's there's oppression. There's the abuse of power. There are the haves and the have-nots. There's the whole legacy of slavery, etc. Um, Saturn falling right there, it's like it really highlights that ugly side of America. And then his Jupiter falls pretty close to the United States Pluto. And now remembering that right? We're at the Pluto return, and I've talked about all what that means. Um, Jupiter, often with Jupiter, Pluto, we get like the big payoff for doing the hard shadow work. It's like the descent into hell and then emerging triumphantly renewed on the other side. It's bringing the light into the darkness. Um, it's like hugely monumental, uh, world historic kind of things can be uh, Jupiter Pluto type phenomena, and um, major transformation breakthroughs, and I I think that that's what we're seeing now with this case, and like it doesn't make up for the pain that that Floyd suffered for his early loss of life, for the pain that any of his family or his friends have suffered, but on the personal level, but on this more impersonal world historic level, we can see it for what it is. It's this like he didn't die in vain. It's horrible and tragic that he had to die, but I don't believe that he died in vain. Let's take a look at Chauvin. Okay, so remember, the United States is at its Pluto return. Um, Pluto is right now exactly opposite Chauvin's Saturn. That's Chauvin's Saturn. That's the United States Pluto. And it's like, well, uh, that also means that Chauvin's Saturn is nearly exactly opposite the United States uh, Pluto. And then Chauvin's Pluto is, within 4 degrees of the United States Saturn. So that's Saturn Pluto two ways between the United States and Derek Chauvin. And we can also recall that um, George Floyd was born with a, I'm not going to pull up his chart now. I think it was the square between Saturn and Pluto, but he he has a Saturn Pluto aspect in his chart. So Saturn Pluto is written all over the place between the two of them. And this, of course, happened in a Saturn Pluto time, the time of the hardest reckoning. Uh, you know, really the kind of grim bearing down, facing the shadow, uh, demolishing old structures so that something new can come. And um, remember too that this Saturn Pluto conjunction was a really a pretty close triple conjunction of Saturn, Pluto, and Jupiter, amplifying and making things more momentous. And so now got a little sidetracked, backing up and looking at the world transit, but just focusing on this chart here, we can think about how on the one hand, Chauvin, his Saturn, uh, concretizes the United States shadow. In other words, it draws the deepest shadow issues of the United States, namely uh, the abuse of power, uh, and the horrible systemic racism that we've had since slave times, um, basically draws that into manifestation. Saturn is the congealer. It's what makes things 3D reality. And so we can think about him as pulling Pluto into manifestation in that way. And then um, another way, we can think about the Pluto as amplify, as intensifying, empowering from the deep kind of lower chakra id level, uh, the his own urge for control and authority. I think that's all I'm going to say on this. So I hope you enjoyed this. I hope it was informative. Uh, feel free to write if you've got any questions or observations. Anyway, my name is Alex Stein, and I will talk to you next time. Thanks.